Hey folks, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another review. And this one is on the 1941 film The Wolfman, starring Lon Chaney Jr. and you also have Claude Rains, Ralph Bellamy, Béla Lugosi in a small role, Maria Ouspenskaya, probably said her name wrong. And if you're wondering, features are Monster by Moonlight, nice documentary on Lon Chaney Jr., He Who Made Monsters, The Life and Art of Jack Pierce, commentary with film historian Tom Weaver, Pure in Heart, The Life and Art, I said that, The Wolfman from Ancient Curse to Modern Myth, a little bit about the history of werewolves. Not really werewolf movies, but just, anyway. About how a lot of things in this, a lot of people think of werewolves, they think of this movie, and now, The Wolfman wasn't the first werewolf film. You had stuff like Werewolf of London, which was before this, but this was definitely the one that kickstarted the whole werewolf thinking of the werewolf in movies. And of course, that makeup by Jack Pierce is a big reason why, as well as Lon Chaney Jr.'s really good performance as Larry Talbot. And pretty much most of these movies, when there was a werewolf, he would come back to play the Wolfman, whether it be Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. What? Let's see. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, and then I think House of Dracula and House of Frankenstein. And Abbott Costello meet Frankenstein. And really enough, Lon Chaney Jr., he actually played a lot of other monsters. He played the Frankenstein monster, and I believe the Ghost of Frankenstein, which is one I want to check out one day. He played, not really Dracula, but he was in Son of Dracula as the title character. He was in a couple of the Mummy sequels as the Mummy, which I know that was the one he hated the most doing. He didn't like being the Mummy, but a job's a job. He was in a couple of those, and that they're not really sequels because they didn't really have anything to do with the first Mummy. It's not the same character, but they were the follow-ups to the Mummy. He was in a couple of them as the Mummy. And Lon Chaney Jr., I mean, of course, his father was Lon Chaney Sr., he had done The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Phantom of the Opera in the 20s. He was a huge star. And Lon Chaney Jr. had a weird, sort of, not the best relationship with his father. In fact, his father, Lon Chaney Jr., that wasn't even his name. His name was something like Claude Chaney or something like that. It wasn't Lon Chaney Jr. And his father said, even though he wanted to do movies, his father said, no, you're not doing movies. In fact, you're going to be a plumber. And so they got Lon Chaney Jr. He wasn't called Lon Chaney Jr., but I'm just going to call him Lon Chaney Jr. just for no confusion. They got him off, and pretty much what happened was the plumbing business went in the shitter. You have the Great Depression. You have his father passing away. He decided, hey, I want to do movies. And he got like bit parts. And I believe an agent or someone said, hey, why don't you change your name to Lon Chaney Jr. and use that? Didn't really get him anywhere, even with the name. Didn't really get him anywhere. I think his first big break was doing Of Mice and Men, as I believe the character Lenny, I believe, and that was very popular. Then he got a lot of roles sort of playing kind of that same type of character. Not all there. And then, I'm not sure what it was. I mean, it's The Life and Legacy of Lon Chaney Jr. Pure in Heart is a really good documentary on Lon Chaney Jr. You probably find it on YouTube, find out information about him. I know this was pretty much his favorite role because it was his. It was his that he originated, was the Wolfman. I mean, there was a werewolf films like Werewolf in London, but he was the Wolfman. Because he was playing the Frankenstein monster, of course someone else had already played that. Same with Dracula or Son of Dracula or the Mummy or so on. But anytime they wanted the Wolfman, he came back. I know he didn't really get along with the makeup guy, Jack Pierce. Now, interesting thing about the Wolfman, originally the way it was going to be made is you didn't see this stuff. You didn't see this. Because it was going to play out more psychologically. I think they kind of did that for Cat People, which I know that director kind of shits on movies like this, but he was kind of doing what these films were doing, so that makes a lot of sense, right? I don't mean the Cat People remake in the 80s. I'm talking about the original from the 40s, or I forget 40s. I forget what year the original Cat People came out. Val Lewton, I believe is the director's name. I could be wrong. I haven't seen the original. I saw the remake, but I haven't seen the original Cat People. But it was more psychological. I mean, there's certain elements they take from this film, I will say. How you know if you haven't seen it? Well, I looked it up. Did a little bit of research, at least a little bit. Anyway, the original concept for this was Lon Chaney Jr.'s character. You didn't know if he really was becoming a Wolfman or if it was all in his head, because you didn't really see him change. And even when he died, they found him, but again, you didn't know if he actually was becoming a Wolfman or if it was all in his head and there was hallucinations and things like that. So it was much more psychological type of movie, but they changed that, and of course you got this, which I think was for the better. Now I will say at the end of the day, I liked the film. I liked the Wolfman. I wouldn't say I loved it. I mean, I would say even the problems I had with Dracula, I would say I liked this one, just because I don't know, this one, I like the mood and the atmosphere and the no music. I don't know. I know I had a lot of problems with Dracula, but just something about it really made me like it. I'd say I like Frankenstein better. Really enjoyed The Invisible Man. I like that one better. I would say I like Bride of Frankenstein better. But The Wolfman is definitely, I think, better than The Mummy. It's better than Phantom of the Opera from the 40s. Creature from the Black Lagoon, you'll find out later. But The Wolfman, I don't love the film, but I liked it. I thought it was alright. Mainly because this makeup, Jack Pierce, really good makeup. And Lon Chaney Jr. did a really good job, as did Claude Rains. I mean, Claude Rains, he was in The Invisible Man. I really enjoyed The Invisible Man. I was surprised by that. Really enjoyed The Invisible Man. Ralph Bellamy, you probably know him most from Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. And he was with Don Amici as the two guys who had, between Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, about the whole bet and stuff. And they had little cameos in Coming to America. And Ralph Bellamy was one of those two old guys. Béla Lugosi only had a tiny part, but as Béla, I mean, they couldn't even give him a different character name. He was Béla Lugosi as Béla. They gave him like 5 or 6 lines, so Béla Lugosi didn't really get much by this time in the 40s, which is too bad. Because he's not a bad actor. I mean, the stuff I see him in, he's not a bad actor, so I don't understand it just because of his accent, which I think is fine. I like it. But anyway, the Wolfman, Larry Talbot, he's come back and he's sort of a stranger in a strange land. He's been in America for a long time, but now he's come back as, I believe, his twin brother. His brother, I think his twin brother, but his brother died in a hunting accident, so he's now the new heir. His father's Claude Rains, which is weird because Claude Rains and Lon Chaney Jr., they kind of look like the same age. In fact, sometimes it looks like Lon Chaney Jr. is older than Claude Rains, so you don't really buy that Lon Chaney Jr. is the son of Claude Rains. But the acting is still good. Claude Rains, he's a father. He's not too much of a hard ass. I mean, he's still about the name of the Talbots, and you don't be the new heir, successor for me. But he's not an asshole. He's not a bad guy. Claude Rains, he's a tough father, but he's not a bad guy at all. And Larry Talbot sees this girl through his telescope, comes up to her. I thought she was fine. I think her name is Evelyn Ankers. She did fine in the role. I thought even though I guess apparently in real life they didn't get along well, they got along well in front of the camera, meaning they worked well together. He kind of tries to pick her up, gets this cane, which has a wolf's head on it, which I believe Bob Burns, who collects a lot of stuff, he actually has that cane. And I will admit, it's photographed very well. It's well shot. When they go out in the woods are very foggy, and there's some good atmosphere to that. The music isn't that bad. The two go out with another friend, the friend of the girls, and who's another girl, and she wants her palm read by these gypsies. One of the gypsies is Béla Lugosi. But interesting thing that they don't really do in a lot of werewolf films later on is that if they see a pentagram on you, that means that you're gonna be their next victim. So he's like telling this Béla Lugosi's telling this girl fortune, reading her fortune, and sees his pentagram, and he goes, "You must go, you must leave, you're in danger." And that girl gets attacked and killed. Lon Chaney Jr. comes up and attacks it. And what's weird is when Béla Lugosi is a werewolf, it's four-legged. And in fact, they used Lon Chaney Jr. what would be his dog, German Shepherd dog. I'm not sure if he was dog at the time or if he got the dog after this movie or if he had the dog before this movie. There was a dog that he adopted and they used it for that scene. Lon Chaney Jr.'s dog. But that's four-legged, but then when Lon Chaney Jr. becomes a werewolf, it's this one. So it's kind of weird that Béla Lugosi was a four-legged. It wasn't Béla anymore, it was just a dog. It was four-legged to be a wolf. And then when Lon Chaney Jr. is two-legged and completely different. So that's not really explained. Didn't really make sense, but whatever. But stops the dog or the wolf and changes back to Béla Lugosi. He's been bitten, so of course he's been cursed. And pretty much a lot of the film is him, feeling strange. Like when he's with the girl and they're at a shooting range, sort of like at a carnival, and a thing pops up in the shape of a wolf. He sort of looks and hesitates. There's a nice little sequence where he's resting on this branch, and you have all this sort of confusion going in his head, all these images popping up in his head. That was a little interesting scene. And in the film, they're still trying to, like, he says he was bit, but then it's been healed up too quickly. And they're wondering, what is his shock? Does he just think in his head that all this stuff with werewolves is going on? He had a shot to his system. Kind of like what it would have been in the original script with that psychological, is he really a wolf or not? But we know it. Maria Ouspenskaya, I probably say her name wrong. She's the older gypsy that tries to help out Lon Chaney Jr., tells him what's going on, gives him this little amulet, pretty much tells him what's going on. And you hear this bit of dialogue a couple times throughout the film, which even the man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. And they say that like 3 times throughout the film. And pretty much the thing is, I think a problem for me with this film is why I don't love it. I like it. I like it because Lon Chaney Jr. I think did a really good job playing this very tragic character and figure that you really feel sorry for. You feel sorry for Talbot. You feel sorry for Lon Chaney Jr. because he seems like a really nice guy, very nice character. You really feel sorry. You feel the tragedy behind this character. That he's in love with this girl, trying to have a relationship with his father, again played by Claude Rains, and he's been bit and he's confused and doesn't know what to do. And you feel sorry for him. He's the main anchor for the film, and again the other cast isn't bad. Ralph Bellamy isn't bad. Claude Rains, I really like him. Béla Lugosi in the tiny role. Maria Ouspenskaya, her role as the gypsy, very well done. She'd come back in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, as would Lon Chaney Jr. And a weird thing about that film, in case I probably mentioned it before, but a weird thing about Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, I probably said this before, but just in case. In Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, Béla Lugosi played the Frankenstein monster, but they really fucked him over because he's doing this thing where he's, even if I told a story, the story needed to be told again in that movie because he's acting like he's blind, and he had dialogue, but they cut all Béla Lugosi's dialogue, and they cut out the bit to show the audience that he was blind, because in the previous film, Ghost of Frankenstein, he got blinded uh, because of certain things. So they were following that up, but they cut all that out, so then people make fun of his performance because they cut out all the stuff that he taught, and they cut out he's doing this, which is the famous Frankenstein walk comes from, that. It's because he was blind in that movie, and they cut that bit of dialogue and stuff out. So I just have, when I mentioned Frankenstein Meets a Woman, I had to mention that because that's a bunch of bullshit. I think they really fucked over Béla Lugosi in that movie. I really do. Because I have seen that one. I have seen that one. That's the problem with the film, and it's because the studios fucked it up. But I like the film for well, Béla Lugosi's good as tiny role, but Lon Chaney Jr. is really good. The problem for me is that it's an hour and 9 minutes. It takes about 42 minutes before the Wolfman appears in the movie, before he changes. Or, I mean, before he, in the movie. I mean, it's an hour and 9 minute movie, and it takes over 40 minutes for the Wolfman to appear. I know it's about build-up, but still, I know it takes like 30 minutes for the Frankenstein monster to appear, but when he appears throughout for pretty much the rest of the film. Here, you see a little bit of the Wolfman attacking some guy, and of course you have a little transformation where you see his legs get hairier, and that's pretty much it. Then it cuts to him, trying to find out what happened, that he's trying to deal with this, talking with the gypsy woman. And there's about 2 other times that he becomes the Wolfman. The second time, when he goes out there, he gets trapped in a, pretty much a bear trap. Even though they're trying to trap a wolf, but it's a bear trap. Gets his leg caught, and the gypsy helps it, says some words, he goes back to human. And again, that transformation, really enough, you don't see a transformation where he's normal, face-wise, and then it goes to the Wolfman makeup. The only time you see that is the 3rd time, and at the end of that 3rd time, that scene. Because he's been tied up in a chair by this point. Claude Rains, because Talbot is believing in werewolves. His father's like, no, it's a sickness in your head, and I'm going to make sure, because I'm going to tie you down. We're going to go out there and hunt the wolf, and we're going to show you that you're not a werewolf and such. We don't see him change and get out of those robes. If they did, I must have missed something or blacked out. Because the next moment, you see him outside, he attacks this girl, Claude Rains hits him with the cane, and when he's on the ground, then you finally see his face change from Wolfman to human. And Claude Rains says, oh my god, it's my son. And that's pretty much how the movie ends. The girl got attacked, but she wasn't killed. Claude Rains, killed his son, but, he didn't know it was his son. And that's pretty much how the movie ends. I mean, again, what really makes the film is Lon Chaney Jr.'s performance. The supporting cast does fine. Claude Rains and Béla Lugosi. The actress was good too. The old gypsy woman, she was fine. It's photographed well when they're in the woods. It's very foggy, atmospheric. Score's not too bad. The makeup of the Wolfman. But again, when you see a werewolf, it's just a 4-legged looking like a dog. That's the Béla character. When you first see the Wolfman, again, it's about 40 minutes into the film. And it's only an hour and 9 minute movie. So by the time you get to it, it's 20, really like 28 minutes left in the film. And he only pops up 3 times. And when he changes from human to werewolf, you just see his legs. Or his feet. And then when he changes from werewolf to man is when he dies. Which is kind of like how the Invisible Man, when he dies, he became visible again. So I guess my point is I don't love the film because not much happens in the film. There's not a whole lot that happens. I mean, the werewolf, again, he only appears 3 times in the film, and they're not really that long of sequences. And it's kind of the same thing. He's in the same patch of woods, and he attacks one guy and kills him. Sort of, does this. The second time, he doesn't really get anybody. He gets trapped in the bear trap, and he gets turned back into human. And then the third time is the ending. And that's all you get of the Wolfman. That's really all you get. And for a movie called The Wolfman, you don't really see a lot of the Wolfman, but it didn't piss me off as much as The Mummy, because you still get more of the Wolfman than you do of The Mummy. And again, Lon Chaney Jr.'s performance is what makes the film. His character, his tragic character, you feel sorry for him. And again, it's photographed decently. And it's an hour and 9 minutes, so it's not too long of a movie. But again, I like the film for that stuff, but I don't love it because it's not much of the Wolfman in the Wolfman, and he doesn't really do much, and not much happens in the film. And I'm not saying it needs to be wall-to-wall action. These movies weren't about that, I know that, but it's not like a lot. Again, he appears like at the 40-some minute mark, and even then, he doesn't really do a whole lot. I mean, this is only an hour and 9 minute movie, and over half the film it takes over half the film before he even appears for the first time, and even then he doesn't do much. I was surprised that you didn't have a moment where he goes from human and then boom, it appears, and then he's a werewolf. First time they did that was Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. You see the reverse, but him going human and turn. You don't. I was surprised. You don't see that in this movie. You see the opposite, but not the full thing. So that was a little bit surprising as well. But yeah, that made me not love the film. I like the film. I don't hate the film, but I don't love the film. And that's pretty much all I can say about it without repeating myself. But it's just my opinion. But either way, thanks for watching. Take care. I still like the film. Not a favorite of mine. I know there's a few folks who call it their favorite. That's fine if it's your favorite. It's not my favorite. I think Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man, and even Dracula I thought was better. You don't get tons of Dracula, but that one I felt more of a mood and atmosphere than in this film. People didn't disagree, but I felt more of a mood and atmosphere in Dracula. And I felt a little bit of mood atmosphere in the woods with the fog. That's pretty much it. But either way, my thoughts on The Wolfman. Thanks for watching. Take care. Stay tuned for more reviews. Later.